Today I'm going to talk you through 5 of the best track-focused sports cars that you can buy for multiple price ranges. 100k, 50k, 25k, 10k, and 5k. Let's get straight into it. If you want to see more great value for money cars like these, then do hit the like button and subscribe as well for 2 videos every single week. 72% of people watching right now aren't subscribed, so I'd really appreciate it if you did. Let's get into the cars. Even though the RS is the big dog when it comes to track-focused 911s, the Porsche 991.1 GT3 might actually be the single best value for money Porsche GT product right now, as it has absolutely tanked in price over the past few years, especially when compared with the RS. This is our 100k car, and it's the basis for Porsche Cup cars, as it comes with parts built for racing, like the dual clutch transmission, which is based on a racing sequential manual. This car actually doesn't come in manual at all, which is a shame, but from a performance standpoint makes perfect sense. These features plus the lighter alloys, the obvious aero, and some good rubbers help this car to manage a 7 minutes 25 second lap time around the Nürburgring, so it doesn't break the 7 minute mark, but it's still quicker than pretty much any supercar you throw at the ring, and it's just 5 seconds slower than the equivalent 991.1 GT3 RS. These come with a 3.8 litre flat 6 engine, which makes 468 brake horsepower, taking them to 60 in 3.4 seconds, pretty decent for a naturally aspirated rear wheel drive car. One thing that helps this car to be one of the best Porsches you can get into is the fact that it's clad with modern tech, but most of it is hidden away, so you feel like you're super in control and engaged, when in reality the car helps you to feel like a hero with features like rear wheel steering and an active diff. I remember just a few years ago these were still over 100k, but now £75,000 will get you into one of them, and for our 100k limit we'll be looking at a 2015 model with around 15,000 miles on the clock. Early doors these had problems with some engine bolts not having the right strength, which led to some catastrophic issues for owners and a mass recall. It was resolved, and these were given a long 10-year warranty to cover for the issue, many of which have now ended or are coming to their end, which has helped this depreciation. The engine is actually pretty reliable though, especially those from after the engine bolt issues, so look for later examples. The Series 3 Lotus Exige radically changed the Exige formula. It moved from being a more flary looking version of the Elise with the Series 1 and 2 to looking like its own beast. It got bigger all around, but somehow more focused looking, especially in the sport and cup specs. But in terms of the purpose, it remained the same. These are all about going fast on track and offering the most analog, engaging driving experience you can get within the confines of modern car requirements. In Sport 350 spec, these look crazy aggressive with the rear wing and flare around the outside, but you also benefit from a stripped out interior with the gear linkages on display, which are an absolute work of art. I'm glad they brought this feature over to the Emira too, but the Exige just does it so much better in my opinion. These come with a 3.5 litre supercharged V6 engine sourced from Toyota, which puts out 345 brake horsepower, taking the car to 60 in 3.8 seconds, which means despite the power deficit, it's only 0.4 seconds slower to 60 than the Porsche. That's because these weigh just 1,125 kilograms, so all in it's fair to say that this car really does embody the simplify then add lightness focus of the Lotus brand, quite unlike a couple of their more recent cars. I mean, even the new Emira is more than 300 kilograms heavier. They'll run you around £43,000 at the bottom end, and for our 50k limit you'll be looking at a 2017 model that's done around 35,000 miles. That Toyota engine is known to be very reliable, and owners on forums have been incredibly complimentary about how well these cars have handled both track and daily driving. On track they can suffer heat soak if used too much, which may lead to early death of some of the components, so if that's what you're planning on doing, maybe spend a bit more and get a Cup model instead, which is more ready for constant track abuse. If you've ever been to a track day, you will almost certainly have seen a Caterham 7 cruising around. These are probably the best value for money track car you can buy, as they don't have anything unnecessary at all, just the basics to get you on track driving quickly as soon as possible. It's actually based on a Lotus, the 7, which was a kit car by Lotus that was in production from 1957 to 1972, so it's a super old core design, but the way this thing captures the imagination of driving enthusiasts still to today shows how solid the simplify then add lightness mantra really is. These are the standard that people compare most track cars to. As an almost open wheeler style design, simple mechanicals and electrics, and a weight of just 615 kilograms, these are the kinds of cars that offer a real opportunity to learn not only how to drive a car quickly, but how to maintain and work on it. In 310R spec, these come with a Caterham tuned Ford engine, a 1.6 litre inline 4 which makes 150 184 brake horsepower, taking this ultra lightweight car to 60 in 4.8 seconds. Not bad for such low power. That 310R is a great starting point because it's literally used as a race car, with the only difference between the track and road car being a permanent roll cage, pretty important for racing, the loss of a passenger seat, and the smaller, lighter aero screen. Of course, practicality is effectively non-existent, but if you want to be on track all the time, just get one of these. You can get Caterhams pretty cheap, but something newer like a 310R will run you around the 20k mark, so well below our 25k limit. These are pretty simple cars, so should be decently reliable, but then their main purpose is track driving. With that in mind, expect to find ones that have had a lot of track mileage, so look for good maintenance history. Also worth checking out the very simple electrics, as parts like the immobilizer are known to cause issues. If you're enjoying the video, do hit like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments down below, would you rather drive an Ariel Atom or like a Caterham style car on a track day, or a supercar like a Ferrari 458 or equivalent? I can tell you firsthand as a Mark 1 Mazda MX-5 owner, these cars are excellent for track days regardless of generation. And the most recent ND or 4th generation is just another example of a historic run of cars that prove how important handling is over power. These sharpen the looks of the MX-5 after the bubblier 3rd generation, and even though I do like the looks of the ND, that's not what this car is about. There's a reason why these cars are used in multiple race series around the world, following on from previous generations. They're cheap, simple, and ready to get thrown around on track. They have a massive aftermarket for track day enjoyers and a wealth of knowledge online to learn from in terms of what the right brake setup should be, what the best suspension is for track days, and stuff like that. Mods are also typically cheaper than many other cars, and to be honest, if I was building one as a daily I could also track, I would just use parts that the race cars use in spec series without the cage. These came with 2 engines, but for our 10k we'll be only getting the 1.5 litre inline 4 block, which puts out 130 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 8 seconds, the slowest and least powerful car on this list. But quite often, power and 0 to 60 aren't part of the fun on track formula. These also got a lovely interior, similar to the one you'll find in the Mazda 3, which is good as in recent years Mazda have really been putting some properly nice cockpits together. £8,000 enough to get into one of these, and 10k gets you a 2016 model that's done around 60,000 miles. Amazing to see how much these have dropped in price over the past few years. First to second gear and third to fourth have caused problems in some cases, but generally these have been quite reliable so far. Services are pretty cheap too, instead the problems I'd expect to find are with some of the bushings perishing early. For our 5k car on this list, we have the only front-wheel drive car and the only non-typical sports car, but in my opinion, one of the best track day cars you can buy within this price range, the Renault Clio RS. I'm talking either the 172 or 182, though I'd probably go for the 182 just for the bit more power and the nice facelift they got too. That's not to say that the 172 is ugly by any means. That facelift came in 2004, and if I was going to get a 182, I wouldn't bother with the cup, as though it removed the heavier luxuries of the standard 182 as well as the premium heavy materials and replaced them with cheaper, lighter stuff. It was still a significantly heavier car than the previous 172 Cup. Just get a standard 182, save yourself the cash, and prep it for the track accordingly with the massive aftermarket of parts that still exists. These come with a 2 litre inline 4 engine, which makes 182 brake horsepower. It's literally in the name, taking them to 60 in 6.9 seconds, which actually is decently punchy for a little hot hatch of its age. These are super popular track day cars, and the benefit of having a front wheel drive car is that you're less likely to be going backwards into a barrier, and in the UK they're pretty helpful when hitting the track during our typically rainy days. I raced my supercharged MX-5 around against a standard 182 in the wet, and though I was faster, it was much harder for me to get around than the Clio. £1,500 will literally get you a track prepared example of this car, and for 5k we'll be looking at a 2002 model with 90,000 miles on the clock. Minor electrical issues and the crank sensor are both known problems, as is the exhaust rattle that pops up at around 4,000 RPM. But it's those pesky non-engine electrics that offer most owners the most annoying problems, and if you're buying one that's been tracked, make sure it's been given the requisite love and attention by its former owner. So there you have it, 5 sporty track-focused cars for multiple price ranges. Thanks to you guys for watching and to the patrons for their support. Click on screen now to check out some more depreciated sports cars.